This is ESPN Esports. I'm Arda Ocal. Happy to be joined by Leo Zuinga, who is the lead game designer for Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2. The remastered versions are coming out September 4th on PC, Xbox, and PS4. First of all, congratulations. You created a game essentially during a pandemic, so we should give you a round of applause for that. What was that like?
It was interesting to, to tell you the truth. I've been in the industry for 21 years and I'd been at VB for 18 years, and I don't think anything could have prepared us to this. But thankfully, a lot of us been in the studio for a long time, and from the get-go, we just packed up our computers and went home thinking it was going to be a couple of months, but 6 months later, still going. So we just kept in communication, like Zoom calls, WebEx, and all that stuff, and we just kept it going. We had a date to meet and milestones to reach. So it was definitely, it kept it interesting for sure.
Well, speaking of dates, I'm curious about when you first heard about this project. We had a chance to speak with Tony Hawk, and he said, this just happened because he had a conversation with Activision because he was at an event and he wanted to show some footage from a previous game, and this led to this game being remastered. When did you first hear about this?
Oh God, it's almost about a year and a half ago or so. Our studio director, him and I go way back, and he just kind of tapped me on my shoulder and said, "Leo, Tony Hawk," and I was like, "Let's do it." Him and I have a long history with the franchise. Our first project at VV 18 years ago was the Tony Hawk on Game Boy Advance. That's how we grew up together making those games. Seeing the fans and the franchise evolve and all that stuff. So after Crash Bandicoot, if you ask Tony Hawk, like, he's been asked every single day, like, when are we going to remaster the game? And it was time. It was time to do it. We learned some things from Crash Bandicoot, and we have a lot of fans within the studio of the franchise. We know the franchise has not had a good record towards the end, but we knew what to do. And we listened to the fans and we listened to ourselves.
So how important was it to sort of repair that with the fans? Like you said, it wasn't exactly the greatest ending for the series, but the series is still so revered, especially the early titles, like the ones that are remastered here. Like, how much had you and Activision given thought about that to say, you know what, we really need to repair this at some point?
Hold on a second. Well, basically, with Tony Hawk remastered, really, it's really going back to the roots, what Tony Hawk 1 and 2 are all about. We have fans, like, I've been with the franchise since the beginning. Like, my very first game in the industry was Tony Hawk 1, right? Like, so it means a lot to me. It gave me my career at Activision, at Vicarious Visions. And the game, to us, it's really timeless, right? So we have a good foundation. We looked at what the game was all about. It's all about, like, bringing back what the skating culture is all about. A lot of us went out and got skateboards. It's been a long time since we skated, and we went out and skated. We practiced our ollies, our shove-its, and all that stuff. And some of them never had a skateboard before. We're so into it. They understood what the franchise was all about, even though they were probably born afterwards, right? So it was super important. And we don't really look at what it's been done before, but we looked at the core, the bones of the game, right? And so when the team comes over and it's like, "Hey, Leo, I think this is very important. This isn't as important." Like, we have a long series of discussions, and we just have to make what we think is the right call.
So, as much detail as you can tell me, I'm genuinely curious, since you also worked on the original titles. How does a remastering work, in particular with Tony Hawk? Do you take code from the original game? Do you take the skeleton? Like, how much do you take from the original game versus how much do you recreate as closely as possible? How does that work?
So again, we've done a lot of Tony Hawk games. So, like, for example, when we were asked, how can you port this game to the handheld? We needed to look at the core mechanics, right? So, like, level layout is very important. The handling and feel, it's like how the game feels when you play, when you ollie, when you, like, turn left, right, how the animation looks. That's like crucial, right? Like, so that is like one of our core pillars. Like, it's gotta feel like, people remember, even though like we do like, we have animation blending now. We have a lot of new tech. Our levels look amazing with HDR on and 60 frames per second. Our art director had a blast just recreating the warehouse. It's been done a few times, but he found a way to make it unique for our game, and thankfully the fans really appreciate it. Right? It's daytime finally at the warehouse, and it's got opening windows and like the sunlight through it. It's just great. So yeah, just a lot of that. We just look at the bones and we just try to not mess with the formula, right? We look at what could be improvements, right? So like when it comes to handling and feel, we looked at the entire franchise, and there are people that don't remember times before the revert. The revert is basically like a manual, and the revert extended the combos and made levels just play completely different, right? So we had to have a revert. If you ask Tony Hawk, like, we have to have the revert, like he knows, like he's a big fan, and he was there with us from the beginning.
How involved was Tony in the remaster? I know that he's been involved intricately in previous versions. How involved was he in the remaster?
He had the first like concept pitches, documentation, and as soon as we had the game running, right, he had a build. Like, we sent it over to him, and we waited, like, hey, is Tony gonna give us feedback or whatever? And sure enough, he came back and gave his 2 cents, on like what's looking good, what's feeling good, things that we can, improve on or focus on. But really, he was one of the first ones to tell us, like, guys, this feels good, right? So like, if Tony says that, he's been through the franchise, right? And if Tony tells us, like, guys, I feel it, right? That feels good, right? Okay, let's keep going. Let's stay the course and make Tony Hawk 1 and 2 what people will appreciate, what they remember. We had the saying, it'll feel like coming home. And I've heard some people say it, on the internet, on some of the previews, the warehouse demo, and that makes me feel good. Like, I'm like, oh God, finally, like, making remasters is it's a challenge, right? But there's a lot of passion within the team, and VV, just Vicarious Visions, has a long history and with remasters, but also with the franchise itself.
One thing I loved about the original games, and I felt it in the remaster, certainly from a nostalgic point of view, because I was somebody that did play 1 and 2 at the time it was released. Not trying to date myself here, but we are.
Yeah,
yeah, we exactly join the club, right? One thing that I loved at the time was the fact that while playing the Tony Hawk Pro Skater games, 1 and 2 in particular, it felt like you were flexing video game muscles that you didn't necessarily get a chance to flex in other games at the time. It felt very unique. It felt very different. The genre in itself was unique. There weren't too many skating games out there, but it just felt like, even as a gamer, it was a different path, a different muscle to flex, which I found very interesting.
Yeah, totally. I vividly remember my first week learning Tony Hawk. And, again, I grew up skating, and just seeing like the way that they emulated and showed the tricks. I was like, wow, they're really paying attention to what skateboarding is all about. But then I was a huge gamer, right? So like, I knew some of my fighting, I'm a big fighting game fan, right? And so it tickled some of that, right? Like the combo system, and like just the input latency, and just how it felt, right? So thankfully, we brought all of that forward. We can't mess with that formula. You don't. That is like, it's super important. And sure enough, as soon as we had it running, we brought in some people outside of the team, and like, hey, try to do a combo. Try to, like, what do you think? And then we start doing what they remember, without us telling them too much, right? Like, we did a lot of that, and a lot of usability testing, we call it, where we bring external people. So, and again, like, just having all the core, like, we had to have 900. There's no way we can ship without it. And all the signature moves from like Muska, Jamie Thomas, all the classic guys, and with the new roster, it gave us an opportunity to bring in some really cool signature moves from them. Our new diverse roster, and it introduced me to a lot of the new, the fresh faces in skateboarding, right? Like the Leo Bakers, like the first, um, it's very like we wanted to bring in diversity and inclusion and all that stuff,
Hmm.
and just seeing how they do their tricks, it's just like, wow, this is completely their own signature, right? Everyone brings their own style, their own take on what skateboarding is all about.
Yeah, I love some of the features. Like you can create your own play skater, you can create your own level. What are some other Easter eggs? Like, are there any interesting DLCs that are in the pipe? Anything you can share with us about what Tony Hawk fans can look forward to in the game?
So the franchise has a long history with Easter eggs, and that's something that we definitely spend time on. And I can't spoil it for you. You're gonna have to go in and hunt them down. We have our secret skaters that will be revealed soon, but also we have a lot of hidden messages and even like homages to, like, the first time you play the Hanger.
Hmm.
I don't know if you gotten a chance to play that,
Not
but it
yet, no.
really shows the history of the franchise. Like we have like the banners of all of the franchise key titles, Neversoft itself, and the Hangar just looking like it never looked before, while still feeling like the Hangar. Like every level you visit will bring you back memories, while at the same time having a really fresh, awesome looking, coat of paint, right? With our awesome technology.
Yeah. I can imagine that you got reached out to by many different managers or agents, celebrities, athletes that would have loved to be involved. All I'm going to ask, because you probably won't be able to tell me anyway, like, what has the reception been like among celebrities and athletes, etc., that would love nothing more than to be involved in the game, to be a DLC character in the game? What has that reception been like?
Well, that's probably a question for like someone like Tony, right? I'm sure his Instagram is probably blowing up right now, right? Like I'm not. My Instagram is like my mom telling me, good job, Leo. Like again,
I'm assuming you've heard, though. I'm assuming you've heard
yeah,
through
yeah.
the
Like
grapevine of some,
we are,
contact that has been made.
if you see our marketing interviews from our pros, our old school pros, or new school
Yeah.
pros, like you can genuinely hear them talk about the impact the game had on them growing up, on their career back in the days, like how they started showing up at skate parks, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, Eric Costin from the game, and I'm like, and he's like, what, the game? Oh yeah, I signed this. So all of them had those stories of the impact of this title, and the new roster, will feel some of that. It's that's the beauty of this franchise. It
Hmm.
really brought this subculture of skateboarding to a wider audience. Like the summer after this game was released, my neighborhood was jam packed with kids skateboarding all over, and they just wanted to learn all the new tricks and try to be just like the game.
So, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 Remastered, available on PC, PS4, and Xbox on September 4th. My last question for you is, people are very excited that this is happening, and people are also hoping that this leads to more. What can you tell us about the future of the Tony Hawk franchise?
Well, I can't give you any details right now. All I can say is that we're gonna see where this game is. We're gonna listen to the fans, just like we listened to the fans throughout the entire franchise, the history. We went through. It was like an archaeological dig, right? Like, where has it been? Where does it need to be? And we hope that the fans truly appreciate, especially the new systems, to keep them engaged through this game, right? And you never know. The future is gonna. There's a lot of potential for it. So we have the love for the franchise, but I don't have anything to announce right now.
Would you personally love to work on a new Tony Hawk game?
I will, yes, I will love to work on the Tony Hawk game again. You look at my resume, the first 7 years of my career were all Tony Hawk games, and there's always a challenge to overcome, something new, something interesting. So, of course.
So if the public wants it, then maybe there's a really good chance for it happening. We'll just leave it at that. Thank you for joining us, Leo, here on ESPN Esports.
No problem. Thanks for having me.